Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting version of Chip Talks Health. Do you hurt when you eat? Do you have burning? Do you have burping up of stomach acid? Do you have bloating? Do you feel like you got to go poop after you eat and you can't poop? Well, you're not alone. Probably 90% of us have some kind of gut issue, some kind of gut pain, something that happens when we eat food. Now, this is not normal, okay? First of all, God is a perfect engineer, if you will. You are designed to operate perfectly. Everything in you is striving to operate perfectly. When you eat a meal, should it hurt? No, it shouldn't hurt. That is not perfect function. That is not perfect engineering. That is not godly. So something is going on there. There is some reason why you're hurting. There's some reason, underlying cause that's causing that pain. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And in our clinic, we deal with this all the time. We have a bioresonance scanner that we cannot call a diagnostic piece of equipment yet. Eventually, we may be able to. We're trying to prove that out. We actually have some grants to do that. But right now, we can't call that a diagnostic piece of equipment. And I'm not a doctor, so I couldn't diagnose you anyway. But what we do see when we look at people with this device is we get a lot of information. And we get, let's say, suspicions or indications that someone might be infected with stuff. So what do we see people get infected with? What's the, statistical probability of infection, and that whatever's going on with you might be some underlying infection? It's darn near 100%. Okay. So everybody that we scan has some kind of infection indicated. Again, it doesn't mean they have an infection. It's not a diagnostic. They've just got some kind of infection indicated. Well, what are the main categories of infections we see? I'm going to walk you through that. So you might be the rare exception, the 1% that doesn't fall into one of these three categories that we're going to talk about. But for most of us, we fall into these three categories. Okay. So, and this helps us triage and helps you get to a plan quicker, a recovery plan quicker. And that's what we're trying to do. If you just said, gee, Chip, every time I eat, my gut hurts without much information, then I know it's going to be one of three things, but I don't know which of the three things. And that's going to cause some delays and maybe some priority, things that we need to adjust and stuff like that. So let's walk all this through. So really there's three types of infections that we see mostly in people. Why these three types of infections? Because they're strong, they're powerful, they outcompete other infections inside of you. And inside of you, it's just like a big, Saharan Africa desert scene. You've got lions and you've got giraffes and you've got gazelles running around, and all those things want to eat each other. So inside of you, you've got a big competition for your resources. And so these three types of bug situations are really what outcompete other situations. Now, sometimes when we see someone who's severely immunocompromised, they'll have other things. They'll have E. coli, or they'll have staph, or they'll have, and again, indicated information. They'll have hepatitis A, B, C, or D. Stuff like that shows up in weakened immune systems. But what weakens an immune system? Getting infected with one of these three big guys, okay? So let's talk about each one of these and how you can identify if you might be infected with it. And then we'll talk about kind of what these guys do, how severe the symptoms can be from these guys, and then what we can do to get rid of them, right? And always in TrueMedX, we have a solution. I wouldn't be talking about this stuff if we didn't have a solution. But I'm also going to tell you how to kind of deal with this on your own. And it's really hard to get rid of H. pylori, and especially if you've got it to where you're ulcerated, burning, taking omeprazole or something like that. I would strongly suggest that you just call us and lean on us to help you with that. We've got a very good protocol. And the pharmaceutical protocols for H. pylori, again, I just see resultants, and those don't appear to work very well. So let's talk about H. pylori first. So he is a big bad superbug. If you want to know more about him, I've done specific podcasts just on him. He's that powerful of a bug. But how do you know if you have him? Okay. Well, I ask people these questions all the time, and everybody comes up with a different way to, let's say, describe this, but I'll walk you through some of this. So again, if you burp up stomach acid at any time, okay, so it's like burp up a little stomach acid and you feel that burning in your throat and kind of in your esophagus, you have H. pylori. Okay, that doesn't happen. You might think, oh, well, I ate some spicy food. Yeah, no, it doesn't. There might be a 0.0001% chance that happens with some kind of pepper or something, but it's highly unlikely. It will happen with H. pylori, and it will happen if you eat certain foods which get your stomach acid up, which irritate the H. pylori. So again, H. pylori causes GERD. It causes stomach acid to be burped up into your esophagus. You will know that you have it by really bad breath, and it's really hard to get rid of the breath. It's going to smell like sour or rotten eggs. And you're going to have a lot of belching after meals. And you may also have the burning after meals, but you'll definitely have the burning and gnawing that you have at night. And kind of when you eat, sometimes that burning and gnawing will go away, but it'll be there at night. And at night, you'll have issues where you potentially will burp up stomach acid. Now, if you're a tongue person, and this is kind of cool, you can take a picture of your tongue and send it to an AI tool like Chat or something and say, analyze my tongue. And it will, which is cool. So if your tongue is thicker with white or yellow coating in the center third of it, or if you have frequent mouth ulcers or canker sores, then those are tells against pylori. And that's kind of stomach acid stuff. Always with H. pylori, you will be anemic and you will have trouble absorbing B12. Why? Because you need stomach acid to do those things, and pylori is messing with your stomach acid. Now, if you go to the doctor is going to, and they know you have H. pylori, or you tell them that you have basically the stomach acid thing, they're likely going to prescribe you a proton pump inhibitor. It'd be a Zol, so almiprazole, or there's other Zols, but it would be a Zol. So if you're taking a Zol, then you've been diagnosed with this and you're altering your stomach acid. One of the greatest things, now H. pylori is cancerous, and he is the underlying insult to pancreatic cancer. Most pancreatic cancer, let's say, there could be a small percentage that's not caused by pylori, but for the most part, if you have pancreatic cancer, you have H. pylori. And H. pylori will walk you up the ladder to cancer, pancreatic cancer. And literally, we can kind of see informationally where you are on that ladder with some of our tools. But he is a cancerous guy. He is comorbid with breast cancer because he causes an enzyme expression which converts your estrogen to the bad form of estradiol, which causes breast cancer. So estrogen-driven cancers, he's comorbid with. So he's just one big bad bug that you don't want to have, okay? So that's how we identify him. We'll talk about how to get rid of him in a little bit. We'll also talk about some symptoms that he throws off, but H. pylori could throw off almost any symptom: acne, RA, a bunch of different symptoms, because he's so severe and such a superbug, and he alters so many pathways. A bug has to alter your immune pathways and your immune response and some other things in order to stay alive inside of you. Otherwise, your immune system will kill it. So pylori does a lot of that, and he does it in ways that are not good for you and can throw off many symptoms, okay? So second major thing that we see, and he turns out that he's kind of comorbid. He shows up a lot with H. pylori, but that's something called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, okay? What do we see with this guy? Well, this guy he underpins a lot of obesity, he underpins a lot of type 2, but he feels a little different. So when you eat, if you get bloating within 30 to 90 minutes of eating, and especially if you're eating like nightshades, so like onions, garlic, beans, fructans, things like that. But if those cause bloating in you 30 to 90 minutes after you eat, you've got SIBO. If you have gas and pressure under your ribs, and if you've got a visible distension, so, look like you might be a little pregnant or something, again, that's going to be SIBO. That's going to be pretty severe SIBO. If you have a lot of, let's say, back and forth between constipation and diarrhea, and if you have a lot of foul gas, then you probably have SIBO. This will cause brain fog. It will cause post-meal sleepiness. It will cause skin flares like rosacea, like acne. It'll cause restless leg syndrome. Again, if you're looking at your tongue, again, this is going to be a diffuse white coat on your tongue with scalloped edges from pressing and breathing on teeth. There may be some puffiness in your eyes, but this is just sort of another way that you can identify this. Now on testing, like how would we diagnostically test you for this? There's a 3-gas breath test that'll test for hydrogen, methane, and hydrogen sulfide. And then we would also be testing for lactulose and glucose. We have to do it by breath on SIBO. Stool tests won't catch this, okay? Stool tests won't catch this. Similarly on pylori, and just to go back for a second, there's a urea breath test. So both of these two guys are really the real pharmaceutical medical diagnostic is breath, okay? So you're going to blow into something and get a output of, if you really have this or not. Now, the last category of stuff that we get infected with, and this is all of us really at some time will be infected with parasites. Parasites are common to mammals, and helminths, parasites, hook, round, pin, tape, worms, they're all the same thing, parasites or helminths. We get infected with these guys just like our dogs or our cats or pigs or cows or sheep do. And probably about every 6 months, we really need to deworm, just like we do our dogs. So just as a preventative. But none of us do that right now. So how are you going to know that you have parasites? First of all, I just assume that you do, and everybody needs to deworm. But here's, the more prevalent, let's say they are, and the more pervasive they are, then you'll get more of these type symptoms. But if you have an itchy anus at night, then you have pinworm. I mean, those guys are, they come all the way through your digestive and they want to kind of get out your anus. And so that's what will happen. If you have a lot of sleep, if you're kids, and kids get these readily, and it seems like they're getting them more and more. And these guys can cause pretty severe symptoms. Like we had one young child who we scanned who was 8 years old, and her big symptom was she'd started menses. So she started menstruating at 8, and she was infected with roundworm. So she just had a bunch of roundworm, and roundworm can cause enough of a hormonal shift to force you into menses, which is crazy. So, but anyway, that's, kind of how severe these guys can be. But we see these infections in kids a lot. Okay. So the helminth infections. So deworm, deworm, deworm. Again, preventative here. It's hard to prevent the pathogens. Everybody thinks, well, I'll stay away from my animals, or, I won't walk around barefoot and things like that. Those aren't bad practices. Just, those are good hygiene practices, but we're all susceptible to being infected with parasites. In fact, a lot of this stuff, believe it or not, we've had figured out before. We had this figured out in ancient Egypt. If you really go back and look at some of their food practices, what they were telling people to do, their, let's say, nutritional and health practices around eating food and their physicality. But they never had parasites figured out. And even in the 1850s, we had a lot of this figured out, but we still didn't have parasites figured out. We were always having to do parasite cleanses and all that. So these guys are, hook us and know how to do that pretty good. And so, once every 6 months or so, we should deworm. Okay, well, universally, like why does this happen? And how do we continue to get infected with these things? And are there things we can do to generally, let's say, build our border wall? Well, yeah. And we should be teaching this to third graders, okay? We should be teaching essential nutrients and then how to guard your gate to third graders. And when we do that, they won't live with these problems that we all have. In fact, most of these guys underpin, let's say 90% of the symptoms, maybe even more than that, 90% of the symptoms that we see in the medical system. So these guys are causal. They cause disease. But if I could educate you on what you need to do to defend yourself, what you need to do to strengthen your immune system, well, that's what I'm going to do right now. But again, if I did that when you're a third grader, you're not going to have the kind of problems that I have, or, my kids have, right? Or my mom has. You're not going to have those type of disease problems. You're going to live longer. You're going to be healthier while you live longer. You're going to look better. You're not going to age as fast. Okay. So pretty important stuff. So, but what do we need to do kind of first of all? So what is our general first priority in all this? Well, the number one thing is to stop feeding the pathogens. We have to stop feeding the things that infect us. And what do they like to eat? Sugar, high fructose corn syrup, anything. Liquid fructose. They love late night snacking. So if they can get you kind of off of a routine meal plan, then they really like that. So what do we do? Well, we need to really go to more of a bland type FODMAP diet. So FODMAP is exactly what we need to do and start with. And we need to cut back on the sugar, the alcohol, the things that feed these pathogens. The second thing that we need to do is really restore our stomach acid and bile. And, again, if you have H. pylori and you're taking a proton pump inhibitor, then you're hurting that whole situation greatly. You're cutting your ability to build stomach acid. So how do we do that? How do we, let's say, naturally restore stomach acid and bile? Well, we need a rhythm to our meals. So you need to begin to eat at about the same time every day. Make sure you're chewing your food thoroughly. Make sure that you're taking, and again, we have a product for this called Digest that we suggest that you take 30 minutes before your meal. But you can take things like betaine, 30 minutes before you eat, and that will help get your stomach acid. Gelatin, artichoke root, dandelion root, bitters all help get your bile moving. And that's really, really, really important. So the essential nutrients, stop feeding the pathogens, restore stomach acid and bile. All of us need to do that right now. It doesn't matter if you're infected with anything or not. Past that, we need to understand what we're infected with. And then we need to really choose a lane. So you need to really choose a botanical lane, a natural products lane, or a pharmaceutical lane. And again, there's, pharmaceuticals for most of this. It's a little bit, I would say it's a little bit harder to go the pharmaceutical route, believe it or not, than it is the botanical route. But either one can work. And ideally, you're doing best practices for whatever, right? So like ivermectin is a really good anti-parasitic. I would recommend that to anybody. However, the pylori pharmaceuticals and medicines aren't really as good, let's say, as ivermectin for some of the parasites. So usually this is a combined thing. I mean, it's almost always a combined thing. But certainly botanically and in TrueMedX, within our processes and protocols, we can get any of these three things and help you, manage through your infection. Or at least that's what's been reported, and that's what we're seeing. I can't make a claim, so I got to be careful to say reported. All right. Now, what do you do after this, after you begin to target the organism? Well, we need to then do some basically sweeping and binding of the bad guys that are in us. And so fiber helps do that. Magnesium will help do that just for motility, and magnesium citrate in particular. And then binders, things like chlorophyll or charcoal, will also help chelate, or chelate is really metals, but get these guys out of our system. And then the last thing, or the things that we need to do to begin to recover, let's say, from these infections, is really rebuild our gut lining. And it takes a ton of glutamine and glycine, really collagen type peptides, to begin to rebuild our gut lining. Licorice helps, and zinc carnosine helps. And then there's some vitamins, A and C vitamins really help, but it's mainly aminos, and it's a lot. I mean, we need like 20 grams, 15 to 20 grams of glycine and glutamine to really rebuild our gut lining, and also to restore our immune system. So if you're infected with something, you're going to be sucking up all your glutamine and glycine in an immune response rather than rebuilding linings. And so that's why this is so important. And then lastly, we need to reseed the terrain. So after we've killed everything off, and you'll reseed the terrain if you improve your diet, okay? So if you start eating, basically the essential nutrients that we all need, so balance omega-3, omega-6, get your all 9 of your essential amino acids plus the collagen, and then make sure you're taking good multivitamin with trace minerals and metals in it. So that is kind of the main thing that we all need, let's say, to build our border wall. Then past that, getting our stomach acid up, rebuilding our gut lining will also help rebuild our border wall. And then it's just monitoring for reinfection. So I will tell you, I have H. pylori. It's super hard to get rid of. I fight this all the time. I know, humbly said, more about this probably than anybody in the world. And, I still fight reinfection. So we're always still learning here. We're always learning new methods. But I will say that stomach lining and stomach acid are huge in preventative. And that takes a little while to rebuild. Okay, so what are we going to do if we have H. pylori? Let's walk this through. And let's walk this through as to priority. So the first thing we want to do is stop the ulceration. And attack, let's say, the root cause. So the pylori and the fact that it's ulcerating you. Now, if you're on a proton pump inhibitor, or on, something like omeprazole, or take Tums all the time, or, any of that type stuff, we need to move you off of that stuff. Now, that's going to be super scary if you're really ulcerated, because it hurts, right? And it hurts without it. But we're going to want to move you off of that stuff, and we're going to move you onto a TrueMedX product called D-Burn. D-Burn is reported to help heal up ulcers. It does it really quick. It's got a bunch of good stuff in it. It's got licorice, it's got mastic gum, vitamin C, zinc carnosine. So it's got some stuff to help begin to restore the stomach lining and heal up ulcerations. At the same time that we're doing that, we want to attack the pylori, okay? And we want to actually get rid of the root cause. And we do that with something called Gut Restore. So if you go to TrueMedX, you will find our Gut Restore product. And that's our product, which is targeted at H. pylori. It's got a lot of berberine in it. And there's a lot of, let's say, evidence for berberine, garlic, for the stuff that we mastic gum, the stuff that we put in that product to kill H. pylori, or to manage and knock back H. pylori. Your immune system ultimately is what kills it. We're just kind of managing it, knocking it back, and getting your immune system strong enough. So first priority is we begin to kill the pylori with the Gut Restore. We heal up any ulcerations and reported, again, I'm not making claims here. So reported to heal up the gut lining with our D-Burn. So D-Burn and Gut Restore are first. The D-Burn, we want to run for maybe a week to get that whole situation healed up. And then we want to start working on the stomach acid and the gut lining. So at that point, we're going to want to see the stomach acid come up, and we're going to do that with the TrueMedX Digest product, or with betaine if you want to kind of do it on your own. But take our product. It's a really good product. But get our stomach acid up with the Digest. And then we're also going to want to rebuild our stomach lining. And I have a new product coming out called Gut Rebuild that we'll likely have available by the time this airs. But Gut Rebuild, it will be our product to rebuild the stomach lining. And it is loaded with glycine and glutamine, which are needed in order to rebuild basically the stomach lining. So if you're going to do this pharmaceutically with pylori, again, it's a horror show, so it's difficult. There's business-based for, I think, antibiotic therapies. And again, if you're going to do that, I would suggest that you have somebody monitor and manage those therapies for you, and make sure that after you're done with that therapy that you go back and get a screen to make sure that that pylori is gone. Okay. It's just, we know the success we're having with botanicals here, and honestly, the pharmaceutical protocols are not good for pylori, and they will tend to point you to more toward pancreatic cancer than they will toward getting rid of the pylori. Okay, so if you want to do it on your own with botanicals, what are good? Berberine, oregano oil, garlic, mastic gum are very, very important in getting rid of H. pylori. The nutrients to watch. So always in an H. pylori infection, you're going to be anemic. So H. pylori messes with stomach acid. Then if you take proton pump inhibitors, you make it even worse. And you have to have stomach acid in order to absorb iron. B12 is the same way. Again, your protein intake is going to be degraded, partly because the pylori eats protein, and partly because your immune system and your gut lining are burning through a ton of glycine and glutamine. So collagen, 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 collagen. And again, so if you want to use our products, it's going to be the deburn and gut restore starting off. After a week, you're going to flip from the deburn to the digest product to get the stomach acid up. And after you get done with the gut restore, you're going to then get the gut rebuild product, which will rebuild your stomach acid. All right, so that is pylori. For SIBO, SIBO is interesting. So if you have SIBO and you go online, a lot of the guidance that you're going to get is fiber and a fermenter. That's just like throwing gasoline on a fire. That is extremely bad advice. Generally, fiber and a fermenter helps you, okay? Generally, if you're not infected with anything. If you have SIBO, fiber and fermenter will not help you. It will hurt you. It will be painful. It will cause more gas and more bloat and more and more and more. So how do we address SIBO? Again, in kind of the same way that we address pylori, which is nice. And we see pylori and SIBO together a lot because you'll get both of these things if you have less stomach acid. So we address SIBO in almost the exact same way without the deburn. So there really is no ulceration with a SIBO infection. So you don't have like an open wound, let's say, that's subject to stomach acid like you do with pylori. So the deburn really isn't so necessary with SIBO, but we start with the gut restore, 2 tablets in the morning, 2 tablets in the evening. And then we also start with the digest at least once a day to get the stomach acid up. And then after we've gone through, again, the restore, we're going to start in with the rebuilding the gut lining with the gut rebuild. So those are the ways that we handle it in TrueMedX. If you're going to do it the pharma route, there's a couple of different antibiotics. So rifaximin and neomycin, or allicin, which is allicin is just garlic. Don't tell anyone though. Shh. It's just the good stuff in garlic. Okay. So anyway, the pharma route is also the botanical route, is what I'm telling you. Oh, what a shocker. Guess where most pharma came from? Botanicals. And that's why we're so wrapped around the axle about botanicals, is because it's just pharma is just a subset of what God already gave us. All right. So after you kill these guys off, again, then you can begin to reintroduce some fermentable fibers slowly, slowly, slowly. But fiber will light these guys up. And so if he's overgrown, then fiber, fermenter, carbohydrates, dairy will light up SIBO like a neon light. Again, you kill it like we said, gut restore and stomach acid and bile, which is what we're trying to reinvigorate. So digest for the stomach acid and the bile, gut restore for basically the addressing of the overgrowth and for the lining. And then always, always, always essential nutrients. So again, are you going to defeat these things if you're malnourished? No, you're not. You're going to continue to get reinfected with them. So if you're not meeting your essential nutrient needs and also rebuilding your kind of stomach acid gut lining processes, you're just going to get reinfected with them. That's kind of what pharma does. It's just a big merry-go-round of addressing symptoms. Well, we don't want that to happen. We want to get at the root cause of what's going on with you. All right, so the last area is helminths, parasites, worms, whatever you want to call them. There are lots of good antiparasitics out there in the animal veterinary world. So albendazole or fenbendazole is a very good antiparasitic that's used for dogs and cats. There's a human version of that called menbendazole that is also very good. It's kind of the same stuff, basically, but the bendazoles is the stuff that we're kind of looking for. These are also very good cancer preventatives, and if you have cancer, again, they're going to address your cancer in a little different way, and they're good to throw at cancer. There's a bunch of evidence out there. There's certainly some of these things, these bendazoles have been in clinical trials for cancer. So, I'd encourage you to read about those. Joe Tippins, if you're familiar with that story. So the Joe Tippins protocol is based on fenbendazole. If you find that original news story, I'm quoted in it, which is kind of cool, which is neat. But anyway, so again, what do we do botanically for these helminth infections? Pumpkin seed, black walnut hull, clove, wormwood, and that's exactly what we put in our deworm with a few other things. Those work very well. They will paralyze eggs. They'll get the guys at the egg stage, at the adult stage. And if you clove is another thing that's really good, but in papaya seed, we have a very good formulation that we use that will kind of get these guys in all different phases of their existence. Okay, what else? So we're all basically limitedly malnourished. And again, omega-3, omega-6 balance, collagen, aminos, B and C vitamins. So really none of us are hitting those marks. Because of that, we get infected with things. And because of that, also, our stomach acid becomes low. So if you look at how you guard yourself from the outside world, it's acid. Okay, so if you're a female and, you're going to have, let's say, a female area, that area is guarded by pH against the outside. If you have a mouth, like all of us do, again, that area is guarded from the outside via pH. And there's some other immune, mechanisms there, but stomach acid is a huge guardian. If you think about it, everything that you eat should be completely disinfected by stomach acid by the time it gets into your intestinal areas. And that doesn't happen right now. So we are not getting up our stomach acid enough. And there's a lot of reasons for this. It's processed food. It's a bunch of, these cells go to sleep that produce stomach acid. And so we have to kind of rewaken them up. And that's what our Digest product does. But absolutely, our first firewall in defending ourselves against these three major infections is stomach acid. The second firewall is gut lining. So if your gut lining is thin, if your mucus is bad, again, that's going to be weaker than if you have strong gut lining and big, good, strong, thick mucus, right? So gut lining is kind of our repair shop, and we have a real high turnover of glutamine, glycine, threonine, collagen-like peptides in this area. So collagen, 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 collagen. And then what else do we need to do? Always the essential nutrients. So rebalance omega-3, omega-6, make sure we're getting all of our amino acids, including the collagen amino acids, and then the core minerals like vitamins, zinc, magnesium, iron, trace, and metals. And the order matters, okay? So again, we need to eat the right things, not a bunch of processed food. We need to make sure we have enough stomach acid and gastric motility to deal with it. This is going to reduce our pathogen load. This is going to reduce our chronic inflammation. Oh, by the way, if you're eating the right things, you're going to be less inflammatory and more healing anyway. You're going to begin to rebuild and reseed this terrain, okay? So inside of us all, it's kind of like we've been growing wheat in the same field for 50 years. The nutrients are gone, the field is depleted. So we just need to re-understand what nutrients we need in that field, and we need to resow that field. Okay. So if you have burning pain that improves when you eat but gets worse at night, if you have belching, if you have bad breath, that's going to be H. pylori. If you have bloating within 90 minutes of eating, that's going to be SIBO. If you have nighttime anal itch or unexplained anemia, that's going to be Helmus. A lot of this you can tell from your tongue. So again, take a picture of your tongue, feed it to an AI, ask it for analysis, and you likely will get back some interesting analysis. That is not a diagnostic, again, so it's just, that's informational, just like our bioresonance is. It's meant to provide information and help you in your decision-making process, okay? If you have black stools, if you're vomiting blood, if you're bleeding out your anus, if you're losing a bunch of weight, if you have persistent high fevers, if you have really severe pain, go see a doctor, okay? See a doctor or go to the hospital. It means that this has gotten severe enough to where it's kind of beyond our ability to help you, and you need professional medical care right now. All right, so let's leave it there. Hopefully this has been good. Hopefully you've learned a little bit about what might be infecting you. Again, always check out TrueMedX. Look at, our resources at TrueMedX. Look at our resources at Neighborly Wellness. This is the main thing that we talk about most of the time: malnutrition, infection, and it's these three things that we get infected with. If you have questions or concerns, hit us up. If you need product, we're always there at TrueMedX.com. We'll leave it there, and we'll see you guys back next week for another exciting version of Chip Talks Health. Bye. If you're listening today and realizing, yep, that's me, I hurt when I eat, don't worry, you're not broken. Your body's just trying to tell you something. At TrueMedX, we've put together what we call the Gut Harmony Bundles. Simple, natural systems to help you cleanse, restore, and rebalance your gut terrain. These are the exact same tools Cindy and I take in our own wellness programs, and we see great results with these every day. If you're not sure where to start, just give us a call or message us. We'll personally point you towards the best starting point for your situation. You can learn more at TrueMedX.com or come visit us at Neighborly Wellness. Let's get your gut back in harmony naturally.